So these are all important terms you should know while working with events. So I hope you are clear with the concept. So event, event handler, event listener, event arguments, event propagation, prevent default, event loop, and event profile. Some more you will see while working with the concept now. Now you need to understand how we use this in our React. So we are going to understand how this event concept works in our React, how React event mapping works. Actually, what is the key point you should know is, for example, if I ask you like, so on click, I already told you yesterday, on click is not event, so it is final. So click is the event. Now if I ask you, click event belongs to which event? Event belongs to which event? Events doesn't belong to any element. All events are related to window. Means browser window, and inside window we have a document. So in browser window, document object contains all the events. You can attach to any event inside document. You can it's not like so events doesn't belong to window document object. It provides all the events. So that means related to all events are all events. Because it works with then how React manages the events. So in React events, we have a library called synthetic events. These synthetic events are virtual DOM events. These are all virtual DOM events. These synthetic events are used in React. And generally what happens, the synthetic events will map to the actual DOM events. For example, on click. This is a synthetic event which will map to on click, that is DOM event. Synthetic event capitalization matters. Uppercase, lowercase, capitalization matters. So now in React, it will not use this one. It will not use the second one. It will use the first one. That means it will use a synthetic event, and that synthetic event is mapping to the actual browser events. So in React, all events used in virtual DOM are derived from a base called synthetic events. We have a special synthetic events library in React that will manage your events. But these events need to connect with the actual DOM events. So technically, you will not use the actual DOM events directly. You will use synthetic events. You can observe here, see. Suppose I will show you here in our React application, roughly in our React application, this is our React application. Temporarily, just I will put a button. I am writing on click. And I will just show you. Right click and go to definition of on click. You can see that it is coming from, on click is coming from mouse event handler. It is coming from a mouse event handler. Okay, right click on mouse event handler, go to definition. Mouse event handler is coming from a event handler. Right click on event handler and go to definition. Event handler is coming from, it is extending synthetic event. And when I go to synthetic event, you can see that synthetic event is an interface. Interface means later you will learn in TypeScript, I will tell you. Generally, people know it comprises of all the rules for event. And the synthetic event is coming from base synthetic event. We'll go to base synthetic event and it contains all. You saw here all event related features are there. You see event related target. Yesterday I showed you. Yesterday we saw that how to access the element details in event listener e.target.id name value. You can see it is having prevent default method. It is having stop propagation method. That means all events are derived from a base synthetic event. They are derived from base synthetic event. So synthetic event is a library. So all the React events are derived from that library. How React handles event binding? Will it use your JavaScript events directly? No. It will not use them. So first point you should know is events are configured. Events are configured by browser document object. Events are configured by browser document object. Events are configured by browser document object. So actually, what is the concept? Document dot on click, like this, on click. So is equal to, you can have a function which can perform certain functionality. So like document dot on focus is equal to, it will perform some functionality like that. Events are configured by browser document object. And very important, document object is a member of browser window. It is a member of browser window. It is a member of browser window. So React cannot use the actual DOM events. Cannot use the actual DOM events. React provides a synthetic events library. React provides synthetic events library. It provides synthetic events library. Synthetic events library that provides events for virtual DOM. That provides events for virtual DOM, which can map to actual DOM events. So base synthetic event is an interface that defines the rules for events in React. Base synthetic event is an interface that defines rules for events in React. That is the React. Actually, React library internally it is designed by using TypeScript language. Entire React.js is built internally by using TypeScript as a language. So TypeScript provides interfaces and all. By using that, it will define the rules for the events. So all events are derived from this library. Now, how this works means how it is going to work. In React, what is difference while working with events? Let's see. Last session I already showed you the difference with general JavaScript events. I'm adding one component called event demo. Okay, event demo.jsx. So export function event demo. So this is just we are having one simple events. Okay, now I will put a button, some insert. So button have an ID. So btn insert. Button have a value, some insert. Okay, now we are having class btn primary something. Now I will keep this in the startup. I will set this as event binding. Event demo, right? We have event demo. Okay. Now let's start this npm run dev, and you can see that. So it is working fine. Yeah. I will launch this on. Okay. Now on insert click, we want to define some action. Let's check. How do we write events now? How do we define the event here? You need to write on click. This is the event. And you know that it uses a function pointer. So you need a function. What is the function name? Insert click. Now on click, it points towards the function. In JavaScript, what you do is you write like a function call. That's the reason you may be confused. That's the reason I given a clarity yesterday that you are not calling the function, you are pointing towards the function. So here you have to just give function name. That means it is pointing towards the function. You just need a function name. You don't need a function call. You just need a function pointer. That means it will point towards the function and it will perform. Now, I'm giving one alert saying that inserted, some roughly I given a message, and you can see that when I click on insert, it is doing it. So, how you configure event in our React? So, here, let's see how it works syntactically. How do we configure? We have a function. And this function need to be executed button on click. Insert click. That's it. So what is the concept here is React uses delegate mechanism. Uses the delegate mechanism that points towards function to execute, you can say towards subscriber. To execute on trigger. React uses a delegate mechanism that points towards subscriber to execute on trigger. It is going to point towards the subscriber. Here, this is called a subscriber. Na? We discussed yesterday sender subscriber. Sender sends a notification and subscriber defines the actions. So it uses a function pointer. Now what is speciality is actually in a general JavaScript event when I showed you yesterday, we can carry the data payload, information about element and information about event by using two arguments. One is this, another one event. What is speciality in React is the arguments are default available. That means the default arguments are accessible implicitly. That means arguments are passed implicitly. You have to just access them. That means here better to say every synthetic event, because React events are synthetic events. Every synthetic event is having an event argument which is by default internally passed. You have to just collect it. You have to just collect it. You don't need to pass any default because every React synthetic event have default event argument. You just access it and you can use it. Let's see now console log. Suppose I want to present the button ID. Tell me how to present the button ID. e.target.id. I want to present the button value. So same e.target.value. I want to know the x-axis position, where they clicked. Then we can directly access e.clientX, x position. I want to know whether shift key used or not. Shift key used or not. E dot shift key. Like this we are defined. Now you see here in the handler you are not passing any argument. You don't need to pass any argument. Default argument is available. Now you can see here when I run this, when I click on inspect, here go to console and I click on insert, it is going to get the tenshu. That means the default arguments are by default available. You can just access and use it. So what is the new thing you will observe here is here React event handler implicitly passes event arguments, default event arguments to subscriber. Implicitly passes default event arguments to subscriber. You can access with a formal preference. You can access with a formal preference. So we have a function insert click and E and E dot target dot ID, E dot target dot name or value, E dot client X. Like this we can have. And generally when you define event on click, you just use insert click. You don't need to pass any argument. So that is default event argument. So that is default event argument. Now question is like, then how we pass custom arguments? Means we want to pass our own arguments. Then how you pass custom arguments? Let's see. So roughly every concept I will give one example here so that you can try. Okay. Now see, the question is how you pass custom arguments then. I don't want default argument. I want my own argument. If you want custom argument, then what you have to do is see, you are calling the function and into that we are passing. Suppose I am passing a string, so welcome something. And we are accessing that str and I am using console log string ms message. And what is the message? str. I am using this technique. See here, when I do that, you can see what it is doing. Default, it is showing welcome. That means even before I clicked it, it executed. Even before I clicked it, when I click it, it's not working now. So when you define any argument like this, automatically that argument will be passed. This is one major issue we will face. So to avoid this, what is the concept memory is allocated even before you use it, and memory is accessed even before you access it, then what is the point? We can design in such a way that memory is allocated only when it is required. Then on click, you don't directly define a function call. If you define a function call, it will be called automatically at the time of loading. Then what you do is you have to configure like a function. You need to configure like a function. Now what? It is a callback function. On click, the callback function, you see now here, it is not calling. And when I click on insert, it is calling. That's better. That means a callback function will allow to execute only when it is requested. If you don't define a callback function, it executes even before it is requested. By default at the time of mounting. Now, why this will happen, I will explain. Because later you will learn about component life cycle. When you learn component life cycle, you will learn several phases. In every phase, what a component does. Actually, whenever component mounts, automatically all events are subscribed. Whenever component mounts, automatically all events are subscribed. Means all events trigger automatically. We don't want that. We want that to execute only when it is required. Now you can pass anything here. So any argument you can define. So what is it? 1 TV, suppose true, some array. So in that we have Delhi. So some Hyderabad like this. And I'm using an object. So rate is 4.5 to something. Now how do we collect all this information? We can collect all this information using a REST parameter details. Right now what we are doing, we are just printing the details. That means actually here we are printing details. You know that details is an array, right? But you know that directly array elements can be printed using toString. Using toString with a comma delimiter, you can print all the array elements. And you can see what happens now is when I click on this insert, it will get all the data. It is going to present all the data that it is having. However, individually you need to access them. That means what we do, we use a destructing architecture. So one is ID, another one is name, another one is stock, another one cities, another one is rating. And this all comes from where? They all come from where? Details. Now you can print the details individually. So how you print the detail? ID. ID is coming from ID. So name is coming from name. So and city stock is coming from stock. And cities is coming from cities. And rating. So we will give here, what is it? Rating dot rate, because rating is an object. In that object we have a key called rate. And you can see that when I click on this, it is going to get that and display. So we can pass the custom arguments. We can pass the custom arguments. Now the question is, then how do I pass default arguments? I want both default arguments and custom arguments. I want default arguments and custom arguments. We said that default arguments are implicitly passed. Custom arguments we need to explicitly pass. Now how you will pass both? I want default and I want custom. Now how do we do? You know the rules of REST parameter. The REST parameter must be last. So suppose I defined E here. I defined E here. So then what will happen is, into that, you see, when I defined E, what will happen? This first one will be sent into the T, will be sent into the E, because you know the rules, order dependency will be there. So now the first parameter must be a default parameter. How do we define default parameter? You created a callback function. This callback function can use event, and that event you can pass here, and we can collect that event here, and we can use event detail also. Now how do we access event related details? No need to tell you, you know that. How do we access event related details? You know. How do we define? Suppose I want a button ID. How do we access the button ID? So e dot target dot ID and /n I'm using. And you can see that when I refresh, you can see default arguments and custom arguments. We have both default and custom arguments. So this is very important while working with events in React. So first point is, how do we configure default arguments? I showed, right? Next point is, you can send custom arguments. You can send custom arguments using a callback in event handler. Using a callback in event handler. So syntactically, button on click. Here you have to use a callback function. So, and into that you can pass the arguments. You can pass multiple arguments. Now your function insert click can access all those arguments. One by one you can access, or all of them. So if you are configuring the custom arguments, then the default arguments need to be explicit. If you are configuring the custom arguments, then the default arguments need to be explicit. Because default arguments are actually implicit. And how explicitly we pass them? So we have button on click. So we use a callback with event. For reasonable understanding, I will use event. You can use any. It is not a keyword, huh? It is not a keyword. You can have event and you can have your arguments. That means now function insert click can access your event and arguments. And the arguments is an REST, because you can have multiple arguments. So event handling, how we handle events and arguments. What about event propagation, event prevent default, all are same, right? That means E dot stop propagation, E dot prevent default, they are all same. There is no change in that. Same methods we are using here, right? So how we can configure the default and custom arguments? This is important. I will like put an example. Actually, this is event demo.js. Okay, so this is the example of how we handle the event. Okay, so now you are clear in React how to write event. How do we write the event? How we send the parameters, how we can access and use them. Now, one more very, very important thing you should know is actually JavaScript can handle two-way binding using any event, but not React. Two-way binding in JavaScript can be handled through any event. Any event you can use. For example, I will show you. So, what is the two-way binding concept? Okay, so you see here, suppose we are having, so input type is text, ID as txt name. Okay, so we have a function, body load. Okay, we have a variable, uname, it is having John. And on body load, document get element by ID, txt name dot value is uname. We attached it. And below this, we will put a paragraph with a hello and a span, ID, LBL name. Okay. Same document get element by ID, LBL name dot inner HTML or text content. I will give you name. And you see what we are doing is at the time of loading, we are displaying the name and we need body on load. On load is what? Body load. Okay, you can see on body load, we are collecting the data from a source and we are updating to UI. What JavaScript will do? It will allow to modify the value. But the modified value is not updated. When to update? On any event. Which event? Any event. For example, I am writing an event called onBlur. OnBlur update is a method. Update is a method. So what I will do? Function. So update. And what this function will do? So it will put uname document dot get element by ID. Get element by ID. What is it? txt name dot value. And after that, in the label, it will display that name. In the label, it will display the name. That means now what I have done is, I clicked here. It is allowing to modify. I am modifying. Which event is attached for text box? Blur. So it is allowing to modify. I modified. After that, blur means click outside. Then it is updated. So I can use a blur event to bind the UI data into the source. Okay. I can use a key up event to do that. That means means I'm using key up event. Then it is updating when key up. When key up, it is updating. That means any event can be used to update back, but not in React. React will not allow any event to update the data. React allows only one event to update the data, and that event is on change. So two-way binding in React can be handled only by using on change. On change. You cannot use other events. Remember, two-way binding means what is the point? Collecting value from source and attaching to UI. That value updated in UI can go back to source. Suppose you are directly typing some value from a text box and storing in a source. That is not two-way binding. That is not two-way binding. Two-way binding is not, suppose there is a text box empty. You are typing some value in text box and you are storing in a reference. Is it two-way binding? That's not two-way binding. Two-way binding means what? Already there is some data in source. Bring it and attach to UI. Identify changes in the UI, update back. And to do that, I can use any event of JavaScript, but not in React. Let's try the same thing in React. We will try the same thing in React. Let's do that. So, I need to remove this. Yeah. I will use a text box. Input type is text. Okay. So now how we handle, I will show you a paragraph and a hello. And I am declaring a constant uname, set uname is equal to useState. Default is John. What is the specialty here? You don't need two methods. I want to display this in text box, just attach to value. Value will come from uname. Here also the value will come from uname. By using a binding expression you can attach, and you can see that it is attached here. That means you can see it is attached. And see the warning here. It is very clean and clear warning. It says that you provided a value into the form field without on-change handler. So this will render a read-only field. That means you are not allowed to modify. You cannot modify. I'm trying to edit. It is not working. So it is a read-only field. Okay, let's try any event. Suppose I am writing a function as suppose name change, name update. That is a function. Now what we need to do is I am using this function for this text box. So on which event I am using, like on blur. On blur, what is it? Name update. And observe here, updating later we will do. You will see that still the error is there. You attached on blur and you can see that it is still not allowing. That means only one event can allow modifications and updates. And what is that event? On change. I am using on change. When I am using on change, now see here, there is no error. And I click here and I am modifying. It is still not working. Why? Because you haven't updated. How to update? We need to collect the data from this text box and store inside set name. How to collect the data from this text box? How to collect the value from this text box? There are no DOM methods. Get element by ID, name, no methods. Then how you will collect the current element value? You know how to collect the current element value. We need an event argument. Through event argument, we can access the current element value and store in which location? set uname. Into that we have to pass e dot target dot value. So that means, you know what is this means? E dot target dot value. That means it is collecting the value from the text box and it is updating into that unit. That means now you can see that, you can see here, I am clicking and modifying, it is updating. So you haven't written on change and you written so many events, still it is read only. That means generally in JavaScript any event can update, but here only on change can update. Mandatory that every field, if it is attached with a value and you are expecting some change in the value, then it must be defined with on change. It must be any element. I am just using text box. We will see all. We will use radios, we will use drop downs, we will use checkbox. In different examples, we'll use all of them. So, what is the key point here you need to understand? So, here you need to understand two-way data binding. Two-way data binding. It is the process of accessing data from source and rendering in UI. Identifying the changes. Identifying the changes in data and update back to source. JavaScript can update and allow to change on any event. JavaScript can update and allow to change on any event. React allows update only on change event. React allows update only on change event. If a value is configured for form field, if a value is configured for form field without on change event handler, then the field is marked as read only. Then the field is marked as read only. Then the field is marked as read only. It is marked as read only. So, two-way binding requires, this is constant syntax. So, input type text and we have on change is equal to some name change. Value is uname. So function uses name change. It will collect the name and set. There are so many problems in this type of approach, I will tell you. That is the reason in real world to deal with data coming from a form. Now imagine in a form there are 10 fields. You need to collect data from all 10 fields and you need to send to some API. Then you need 10 events. 10 events are required because every element needs an on change. That means 10 fields, 10 change. And after that you can collect the data and you can use the data. That is the reason it becomes very difficult while working with direct options available in React. And what developers will do? They use third parties. What is the solution? Use a third party library that will provide solution. It's easy using third parties. I will show you how the third party works. But handling forms in React is very risky thing. It's very complicated. So we need third parties. They are trying with so many solutions in React. Internally they added some new things, but still not satisfying. So in real world projects, 100 to 100% will use third parties to deal with the complex forms. If you are designing very complex form, lot of data to collect, then better use a third party. They will provide easy solutions to handle the data, right? So I will show how the problems will come here. So, but this is very, very important. That means two-way binding can be handled only by using these kind of options. Okay. Now, once you are aware of all these concepts, that means now you know in React how to write event and you know how to pass the event arguments, default arguments and custom arguments. And you know how to handle two-way binding, how we collect the data and attach, how we update the data back, these basic things you know. Now, once you know this, you should learn about various synthetic events. So synthetic events. Synthetic events of React. Synthetic events of React. So what are different categories of synthetic events are available? What are the synthetic events of React? We have mouse events. We have keyboard events. We have button events. Button events. We have clipboard events. We have element state events. So we are having timer events. We have form events. So many categories are there. We have touch events. These are all different categories of events. We use different categories of events handle different events. So mouse, keyboard, button, clipboard, element state. Same you can use in your JavaScript or here, anywhere it is the same concept. And I will give one example on one categories because in different situations we will use them, right? We are going to work with them. Let's see what are the mouse events we have. What are the mouse events? Generally, mouse events we are having on, mouse over, on, mouse out, on, mouse up, on, mouse down, on, mouse move. These are the events. These are different events. We have mouse over, mouse out, mouse move, mouse down. These are different types of events we are having related to mouse. Some most common events are these. These are very common in various interactions. Let's see one point. Suppose how we can configure the events, how we can define the events. Let's take one example I will show on every category here. Suppose we are having Flipkart, some mobiles, detail about mobile. Yeah, this is general navigation. The slideshow they have given. Okay, any preview like they change a little bit now. I will do one thing. Suppose we are using some mobile, so categories. Yeah. So we want to achieve one simple functionality, like we have different colors mobiles. And when I move the mouse onto it, it should display that color mobile here. That means it should display the preview when I move the mouse onto it. That means it should not wait until I click. Just when mouse is over, then the preview should come. Preview should display for that particular image. So we have different colors. We want different preview. Let's see how we can achieve that. So for example, first what I will do is I will take a screenshot of these images. Yeah, different color images are here. So I'm taking this image. Okay, this is one image. Fine. This is another one. So this is image. Oh, this is second image. Okay. Roughly. And this is the third image. Okay, I just copied these images and I'm defining this. Fine. Let's go. I copied these images in my location, these three images. Let's copy and put in the project folder. Our project folder is React demo is the project folder. In that way to keep all the resources in public. In public, I am keeping all these resources here. And I will use here rename this as white. And here we say gray blue. So here I rename this black or gray. And this is some blue. So this is white, black, blue, some PNG files. These are all PNG files. Okay, let's go. And what we are doing here is we are creating in public folder. I am creating a new file called mobiles.json. We are having a JSON file. Means how we manage the data locally in a JSON file. And I am creating an array of objects. And in this, every element is having an IMG key, IMG SRC. That is the image source. And the image source one is white.png. You don't need to mention the path. You just mention the name. And another one is black.png. I just given simple names, blue.png. If it is having a lengthy name, use that name. But no need of any path. And make sure that JSON is in public only, inside the public folder. So what is our requirement here now? So load all these here. I will just give here. This is an example of which one? Mouse. I'm just showing one mouse event related example. So first thing, we need here constant mobiles and set mobiles is equal to use state. Into that it is an array of object with what is the key, IMG SRC, and it is an empty string. I'm expecting a string type. Okay, this is the type of data I'm expecting. So function load mobiles. How do we load from any JSON file? We need to use an AJAX call. I will use axios.get. Get from which JSON file? Mobiles.what? JSON. Mobiles.json. Then once it is successful, then get the response and send the response data into set mobiles. Response.what data. How to use an Axios I already showed you. Now what we will do here is use effect at the time of mounting the component. What to do? At the time of mounting the component to load mobiles, the data will be loaded. Now mobiles is an array and we are defining simply class. This is class name row, and in that we are having a div. This is class call one, and another one we are having a class call 11. Left side column I want to show preview thumbnails. So mobiles.map, read every mobile, and for every mobile create one div. And you know that this div needs a key, and that is mobile dot image source is the key. Okay, now here I want to display an image. What is the image source? Image source is dynamically coming from mobile dot img src, which I will give as 100. So 50 is enough. So height also I given as 50, small, width and height I define. So now you can see that every div will have a class margin y4. That means it will have some gap, and that's what it will display. That means we are collecting the images and we are displaying the images as thumbnails from a JSON file. Now when I move mouse onto it, its preview should come right side. Its preview should come right side. So right side I am having an image. And what is its image? So width some 300, some height as 400, So you have an image with the height, so little lengthy. Now what should happen? When I move the mouse onto this image source should be applied here. That means what is another reference I need is preview image img and the set preview img image is equal to use state. By default, preview image is, suppose which one is first one, white dot what? PNG. By default, it is white.png. So what I will do is, the preview image here, SRC is coming from, dynamically from preview image. SRC is coming from preview image. That means default white will come. By default, it is going to display white. When I move the mouse onto the thumbnail, the preview should come here. So what we need to do, we need to write an event function handle, suppose mouse over. You can give any name. On mouse over, I will use an event argument, and this mouse over should work for the image. That means on mouse over, I will write here handle mouse over. Now how to get the image source? E dot target dot src and set preview image as E dot target dot what? src. So what is the meaning? When mouse is over the image, that image source will be applied as preview. When mouse is on image, that image source will be applied as preview. That means on mouse over, we are configuring it. On mouse over, we are displaying those images and showing those images. I'm just changing the image. You can change a lot of details. In later stage, we can put information about that mobile will come. Because as of now, I created only image. Right? You can have a title, you can have description, you can have features. Right? That means actually here, I'm just showing the preview. Suppose we have a heading. Right? This heading also should change dynamically. Right? Then that means every mobile is having an image source and it is having a title. Right? What is the title? Samsung white, suppose 128 GB. Suppose here we are giving another one title. So what is it? Some Samsung, it is black. So black, it is like 256 GB. Like this. So we are adding another title. So, and it is having like Samsung blue. So this is like 500 GB something. And this title must be displayed here. So whenever the mouse is over, what we need to do, we need to display the title. That means you need to get one more option and display that. How? How we can do that? We are using preview image. Preview image is coming from there. So when I move the mouse onto it, then image source, how we can put that another text? You can put heading, or you know image have an option called title. You remember when you learned images? Title I can keep from where? Mobile dot what? So every mobile is having, here we haven't mentioned, mobile is having another one. What is it? Title is a string. That means I will apply mobile dot what? Title and see what happens. I'm not using heading when I move the mouse onto it. So you can see its title will display here. That means on mouse over, the title will display there. The same title See, you can see title is displayed everywhere. The same title you can display right side. You can display all its features. You can display it as heading. So we will design different examples. We will see how we can manage. So first point is we don't wait until click. We wait. We just define mouse. And some events we will add here. What is it? Let's go to styling. That means event demo.css. How to link the CSS file here? So we have to import /event demo dot what CSS. So C styles also available. So what we are doing here is dot call one. Call one means thumbnail. In that call one, so we have an image. That image will have a border, 1 pixel solid gray color border, 1 or 2 pixel I am giving border. That means the images will have border. I will give padding as 10 pixel. That means some gap will come. 10 or 5 pixel, the gap is fine. Now what should happen is in that column image, when hover, mouse is over, then what we do, we will put a border, some 3 pixel solid blue color border, right? And you can see that when mouse is over, it will display. And I will change the cursor as grab. Then a hand symbol will come. That means when mouse is over, it is showing an hand symbol and it is displaying. It is displaying. These are some basic things you need to know. So we are applying some styles and we are configuring the styles. This is just to make you understand about how do we use mouse event. Means where we use the mouse event, how do we handle the mouse event. So one example I will give. This is an example of what mouse over. Right, we have 2 files. One is event demo.css. In event demo CSS, this is the code we configured. Another one is event demo.jsx. In that I am adding this one. So this is the code on event demo. I will put that here. Right. So this is one example of just using mouse over. Now similarly, mouse out, mouse down, mouse up, move, different examples. I will show one more example on mouse, how to handle them. That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we will do. So now we are going to see some examples, how in real world these events are used. Right, different events where they use. So if you get a clarity about the events, then we can build complex examples now. We are going to build a weather app. We are going to build a shopping application like interface, filtering, sorting, searching, everything we can implement now. That we are going to see in next session. Right. So tomorrow we will continue with that. Okay. Right.